Russian President Vladimir Putin says he has signed a decree ordering the partial military mobilization of Russia's armed forces.
President Putin has announced a partial military mobilization.
Russian President Vladimir Putin is calling up reservists to fight in the war in Ukraine. He made the announcement.
Russia's invasion of Ukraine is fast approaching its first anniversary. The invasion has not gone according to plan for Russia, as its losses mount. The announcement of a full-scale mobilization was in order to get its invasion back on track, but Russia faces many challenges beyond the actual battlefield. Russia has struggled to win over any allies. Aside from North Korea, Cuba and Syria, no other nation has openly or fully committed to stand with Russia. India and China have been careful to not be seen to be fully in Russia's camp. Russia's invasion of Ukraine has also exposed her military capabilities, which was for long used by the Kremlin to project an image of strength. Russia has for long showcased futuristic weapons systems to build an image of strength, but the Ukraine war has shown that the more mundane things, like armor and ground maneuver, are where Russia has struggled to strike a decisive blow. Russia's invasion has turned into a slow grinding war, and in 2023, it remains to be seen if Russia can change this. The Republicans didn't do as well as expected in the US midterm elections, but social and cultural divides are polarizing the nation. The days of America being divided into red and blue has now given way to differences on a range of issues, from abortion, guns, and other hot-button issues after a string of contentious Supreme Court rulings. Donald Trump's formal entry into 2024 presidential race will pour fuel onto the fire. The challenges for the US is that this internal dysfunction will eventually have an impact on America's global position. The call by Senator Ted Cruz for Texas to secede from the US because the Democrats are destroying the country shows politicians will use the divisions for their own ends. This raises a serious issue about the future of a united America. In 2023, we will be watching to see if American polarization impacts America's global position.
Next, social media footage from China appears to show people in the western city of Urumqi protesting against COVID restrictions.
In December 2022, 10 people died due to a house fire in Urumqi. Many locals took to the streets in protest as the emergency services were unable to reach them in time, as the fire exits were welded shut due to China's strict lockdown rules. These protests then spread as many pushed back against the harsh lockdown rules, which has seen whole cities shut down for weeks due to a few COVID infections. This comes at the worst possible time for the Chinese Communist Party, as the National Congress in October 2022 put out an image of strength as Xi Jinping began his third term in power. Xi Jinping's COVID policy is now suffocating the economy and frustrating citizens who live under the constant threat of being quarantined. With Hong Kong, Taiwan and Xinjiang already proving restive, the Communist Party's image of stability has taken a huge hit. In 2023, China will have to deal with its domestic issues rather than projecting an image of strength abroad.
The White House has published a sweeping set of export controls on Chinese chip manufacturers.
Washington has imposed sweeping controls on exports of semiconductors, also known as microchips, to Beijing.
In business tonight, chip stocks across Asia are falling victim to the escalating US-China tech war.
In 2022, the Biden administration imposed a raft of sanctions against China that severely restricted access to semiconductor technology. The restrictions included US companies being banned from operating in China, as well as banning semiconductor machine manufacturing companies from selling to China.
We're investing aggressively in areas like semiconductors and batteries. That's what they're doing and others. So must we.
The 21st century tech war is now in full swing, and the US strategy is clear: restrict Chinese access to technology. China has for the moment failed to respond adequately, and in 2023 she will need to come up with a strategy to push back against the US. Otherwise, China will never get anywhere close to challenging the US global order. With semiconductors being at the center of future tech, the outcome of this tech war will impact who will be the global power. AKP party will face its 7th general election in power, ever since it first emerged back in 2002. The AKP and its charismatic leader, Erdogan, have ever since dominated Turkish politics as the opposition failed to unify and challenge the AKP. But the elections in June 2023 take place in a much different context. Turkey has been struggling with inflation at 80%, increasing debt and a depreciating currency, which has led many to question the AKP's stewardship of the economy. The AKP's approval ratings have been sagging, and the number of rifts within the AKP have also emerged as Erdogan has centralized so much power. For the first time in 2 decades, Erdogan is not the clear favorite to win, but Erdogan faces many other challenges. Erdogan has made a number of pledges to his supporters as Turkey celebrates the centenary of the Turkish Republic in 2023. Erdogan has said he wants to revisit the Treaty of Lausanne, which gave most of the Aegean Sea to Greece. Erdogan has promised he plans to rectify this, and in 2023, we will see if Erdogan rights the wrongs of this historical treaty. It has been over a decade since the Arab Spring uprising, but today the situation politically, financially and socially is far worse in the region. In Egypt, the people suffer from a faltering economy, whilst in Sudan and Algeria, the rulers were forced to step down, but demonstrations still continue. In Iran and Iraq, protests against the regimes continue, whilst in Lebanon, the state has collapsed.
The head of the IMF is warning the economic strain caused by Russia's invasion of Ukraine could ignite civil unrest in the Middle East and beyond.
COVID-19 made the already dire situation worse, and the subsequent Ukraine war has led to wheat and energy prices to rise beyond the means of most people in the region. COVID-19 and the Ukraine war exacerbated long-standing development challenges such as poverty, the deterioration of public finances, increasing debt vulnerabilities, and a further erosion of trust in the government. The conditions that led to the original Arab Spring are today far worse. Over the last decade, it would seem more nations are experiencing social unrest, and it remains to be seen if 2023 will be the year for the next regional upheaval.
In fact, I think we have entered an era of deglobalization.
So this probably is a setback for globalization.
We must replace the present policy of globalism, which has just taken so many jobs out of our communities and so much wealth out of our country, and replace it with a new policy of Americanism.
The era of globalization officially ended in 2022 as the US implemented the Inflation Reduction Act 2022. Its measures include $370 billion in subsidies and tax breaks for green investment. But a key condition for this is most of the supply chain for qualifying goods needs to be in North America. This got the ire of Europe, as it will poach cutting-edge and strategic European industries from Europe. Public opinion against globalization has been growing for some time, as so many jobs have been lost and so many industries have moved. If this trend continues in 2023, such decoupling will lead to economic nationalism, which usually leads to wars in the long term. In July 2023, India is forecasted to overtake China as the world's most populated nation. Reaching 1.4 billion people, India will have to deal with a multitude of challenges. India will need to feed, educate, house and fulfill the basic needs of an ever-growing populace. India will need to generate 90 million jobs from now to 2030 in order to absorb new workers. To create jobs at such a massive scale, India's GDP will need to grow by 8.5% annually over the next decade. For China, this comes at the worst possible time. Whilst China struggled with its huge population growth in the past, in 2021, China's population grew at its slowest rate and is expected to begin declining in a few years' time. China's population is likely to grow older before it becomes richer, and this will have major implications for the nation's ambitions.
A global recession is just around the corner.
My base case is a deep global recession.
There's a new study by the World Bank that says the globe may be headed towards a recession next year, along with a string of financial crises in emerging markets. Joining us right now to talk
The
about
global commodity crisis, supply chain crisis, and energy price hikes makes a recession in 2023 almost certain. But as energy and food prices skyrocketed, went from being temporarily elevated to being a persistent double-digit problem. The winter in the Northern Hemisphere will likely send energy prices higher, exacerbating the cost of living crisis many are already facing. It was the economic situation of the last decade that led to the rise of populism and many turning to unorthodox political parties and individuals in the hope things could be different. Many in the West have never recovered from the global economic crisis from 2008, and another looming recession will in all likelihood create further tensions that could lead to new crises to emerge.